In the past videos, I've spoken a lot about scammers because our enemy, Satan, is the chief scammer. Or as Christ said it, he's the father of lies. And Christ made plain there is no truth in him. Now, in this video, I want to now talk about something else that relates to this subject of scammers. When someone has been scammed, when someone has been taken advantage of, it's often hard to convince them they've been taken advantage of. It's easy to scam someone, or better said, it's easy to scam a whole group. Scamming a whole group goes far easier and far quicker than scamming an individual. But it's very hard to convince the victims they've been scammed. Obviously, there will be denial. People don't want to think they've been scammed because it hurts. It's very shocking that you've been taken advantage of like that your trust has been used. But eventually, once the facts speak for themselves, the individuals become enraged, become angry, and from there they cool down and they accept what happened and they give the place. So they process what happened, and while they're processing it, they're moving on. That processing will not be an easy thing, okay? So don't expect them to behave at their best. Now, they're not going to attack people, they're not going to harm people, but they're just not going to be at their best when they're processing things. They may shut down in communication for a while. Not because they're hermits, not because they are, how do I say, vagabonds, anything like that, but just because it's overwhelming to them. They've been scammed. They are going through something painful already. They don't want more pain, so they're not going to take it out on anyone else. And when they realize that they're acting a bit irritated, once they realize it, they get more shocked. Such people just need space in order to recover, and if needed, you offer assistance at a distance. Okay, that's how it goes when someone discovers they've been scammed. It's similar to grieving. Everyone tends to grieve in their way, but overall, in the grieving process, an individual needs space to process what happened. Most people, when they've been scammed, that's what happens. They grieve the loss of trust, the loss that they've been taken advantage of. Some people lost money, they'll never get it back. Others lost the life of a loved one because they trusted a so-called doctor who ended up not being a doctor at all. Such things happen also. Now, such a grief may take longer because it's a real human being that died that they can't get back. When someone has been scammed, they need to grieve the loss that the scam caused, and they move forward. While they're processing it, they're moving forward. That's how it goes naturally. But you have folks who aren't stuck in the grieving process, because sometimes it happens to someone is stuck in the grieving process. It's that they're not grieving at all, because their denial, instead of being a temporal defense mechanism, it has become pathological. They just do not want to acknowledge that they have been taken advantage of. They are proud. To acknowledge you've been taken advantage of means that they need to question and revisit everything they think. They don't want to be challenged mentally. And now they have no choice but to be mentally challenged because they've been taken advantage of. And now, because they're so frustrated at reality, they're now becoming bitter. Or better said, bitterness is growing in them. The more the days pass by, the anger turns into bitterness. It turns to a vicious attitude. And as I said before, as a human being, you develop bitter thinking. Okay? I want to correct myself. In this video I said the anger will turn into bitterness. No, the anger will turn into bitter thinking. And bitter thinking enables the evil spirit of bitterness to enter in. Now, what's the difference between the spirit of bitterness and someone with bitter thinking? Someone with bitter thinking tends to process things in a negative way all the time. They are always the victim. They're always the one that are hurt. They're always the one that people are against. But such a mindset is tiring for any individual. But when someone has bitter thinking, the spirit of bitterness comes, and this demonic entity will back up this bitter thinking. So you may see someone that's bitter, but they are smiling, they're having a good time. But at the same time, they're spitting out venom all the time. What's going on now? The spirit of bitterness is working through that individual. They have bitter thinking, which is the thinking they develop that's separate from the evil spirit, but evil spirit now is enabled by their bitter thinking to work through them. And because the evil spirit backs them up, they won't sense much of the self-destruction they're operating in. So the demon keeps that individual on life support by transferring the weight of the self-destruction onto others. So the individual who, as we say, has become bitter, is now used by that spirit of bitterness, or sometimes just a spirit of violence, into poisoning others with negativity. At this stage, the individual is not a victim anymore. He or she has become a perpetrator and an enabler of evil. Now, why am I talking about this? It is because many people, I'm not saying all people, okay? Many. Why I say many? Because for you it will be many. Of all the hundreds of millions that walk on this earth, you will not meet all of them. You may meet maybe a few hundred of such people out of the whole population. In the absolute sense, there are a few, but relatively speaking, for you, an individual, there are many. So I'll say many. There are many people that just don't want to let go of the deceptions they've been conditioned into. Remember what I said. There's a difference between someone being stuck in the grieving process and someone that turns bitter. Someone that's stuck in the grieving process, with the right aid from the outside, it will be over. I'm not saying that aid is going to be easy, but someone that's turning bitter, there is no therapy useful for such people. Because someone that's stuck in the grieving process, that they've been scammed, is someone who has to adapt to life afterwards. Depending on how deep the scamming went, that also determines how much you need to process. But someone that's not processing anything but turns bitter is delusional. They are delusional because they have a pathological refusal to reality. They say no to reality. They scream no against reality with their attitude. And they expect everyone else to reflect their no to make them at ease. So they expect everyone else to get along with their no, and they don't care about the consequences it has for other people. What I'm saying is, when someone refuses to acknowledge that they've been scammed, and this refusal turns pathological, I'm telling you, such an individual is delusional. Such an individual eventually will turn into a bitter individual, where the spirit of bitterness will work through such an individual. Such an individual is extremely dangerous to be around. Such an individual is dangerous for your mental health, your emotional health, and for your physical health also. It's just like being around a cobra or a python or a snake that spits venom all the time. Now, in the natural, you can physically die due to the bite of a serpent or to the bite of a viper. Spiritually, it's just like that. But in the spirit, you don't die instantly. You die over time. You may develop cancer or all kinds of physical sicknesses by being around an individual who turns bitter. Someone with bitter thinking, where the spirit of bitterness is working through, is life threatening to be around such an individual. And I'm not saying this to provoke fear into you. I'm saying this to show you the seriousness of the situation. I don't care if such an individual is a parent, a child, or some other relative, or maybe even a spouse, or a co-worker, or a former friend, or an ex. I don't care who they are. If their refusal to reality becomes pathological, because in denial, and because denial is common as a defense mechanism for a while, and eventually people process things. But when denial, when their no against reality becomes pathological, I'm telling you, take steps back. Do not remain on the same terms with the individual as before. Because such individuals, there comes a point that they explode. And when they explode, remember, they already have the spirit of bitterness working through them. When they explode, people get hurt, people die, or massacres occur. I'm telling you, someone who does not want to forfeit Satan's ways, because all the ways of the world are Satan's ways. Let's be frank about it. And Satan is the chief scammer. So all the ways that Satan offered to you are scams. Now you've been conditioned into those scams by the world. You couldn't help it. You had no other choice. You didn't have a choice. But now Christ grants you a choice, and he expects you to obey him by taking that choice. He wants you to agree with his choice for you, because Christ has chosen you. So you are expected to be humble and to accept his choice and get along with his choice. So you ought to respond favorably to God's choice towards you. So you choose him because he chose you. He chose you first, and because of that, he expects you to give in to his choice by you choosing for him. Then you'll unlearn all the scams of Satan. But those that refuse to even acknowledge they've been scammed, they are very dangerous to be around. Don't allow them near your kids. Don't allow them in your family. Don't even allow them in your house. Don't. If you have them on social media, it may be wise to remove them from your social media platforms. Because such individuals, they'll become envious and jealous. Remember, envy and jealousy always coexist together. You can't have envy without jealousy, no jealousy without envy. So such an individual eventually even spirits of envy, or spirits of invidia will begin to work through them. I've spoken of invidia spirits before. Check my previous videos. Beware of the enabler. I'm not talking about people who don't know what's going on and don't know how to handle a situation, and because of that, without them being aware of it, they're enabling something. Sometimes parents who have addicted children are going through this. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone whose refusal of reality turns pathological. You shouldn't refuse reality at all, because reality is positive. There are bad things happening in reality, but it doesn't mean that reality itself is negative. Okay? But someone who becomes delusional, they'll turn bitter, they'll turn envious and jealous, and sooner or later they'll explode. It's just a matter of time. So, anyone who refuses to forfeit the ways of a scammer, they'll become the enabler of that scammer. And as enabler, they are far more dangerous to you than the scammer himself. Sometimes it's not really evil spirits and Satan that you're fighting. Sometimes you just need to be delivered, or better said, you need to be freed from the influence of certain people. Sometimes it's people you need to be delivered from. It's not you having a defect. It's not you needing deliverance. You need to be delivered from certain people. So let the Holy Spirit block those people from you, the way you choose to do it. Well, that's it for now. Keep agreeing with Christ and be at peace.